Many people journey outdoors to see vast mountain landscapes, sweeping meadows, and other breathtaking views. But is this idea of natural beauty the only value that the wilderness has to offer? Today, Adventure Archives journeys deep into the forests of the Great Smoky Mountains to find the beauty that lies beneath the surface. It was a cloudy, stormy evening when we left to head south towards the Smoky Mountains. We drove through the rain and eventually arrived at a modest motel to stay in for the night.
Turn left, then slide left.
We gathered up our gear and headed upstairs to the room.
After getting our gear sorted out, we fell asleep for the night. The next day, we packed up the car and continued on our journey.
As we drove, we passed by the Sun Sphere in Knoxville, Tennessee, a building from the 1982 World Fair.
And as we neared the Smokies, we saw more and more blue hills in the distance.
Before long, we were on a winding road leading into the park. We passed by the Chillowy Dam and drove along a large reservoir of deep blue water.
Now, we drove along a winding forested road.
We started seeing several motorcyclists, and soon learned that this was actually a well-known road nicknamed the Tail of the Dragon.
So this is 129, and we didn't know this before, but I think this is a very popular motorcycle route because this entire road is just filled with motorcycles and then us, one Subaru and a truck.
And just all along the way, there's people taking pictures of the motorcycles.
This would be a really fun road on a motorcycle if you weren't scared to death. But in a car going to a backpacking trip, this is not a great road.
Unfortunately, as thrilling as it may be to drive here, it's also a high crash area, and we ran into a traffic jam caused by an accident.
Somebody said there was a wreck up ahead, but we're gonna try to keep going for now because we're not that far away. We're only 6 miles away.
As we inched along in traffic, we saw an ambulance approaching from behind.
After a half hour or so of waiting, we saw the emergency vehicles leaving the scene, escorted by several bikers. Hopefully, nobody was hurt too badly.
Now we continued along the road, and everyone seemed to be driving more cautiously. We passed by the Tail of the Dragon store, and eventually arrived at our trailhead.
At the trailhead, we got all of our gear sorted out. It was a beautiful summery day, and there were butterflies fluttering around.
As we walked to the trailhead, we talked about the strange drive up here.
Oh God, I was getting so nauseous and getting a headache sitting in that car, like twisting and turning. And now I feel much, much better.
Yeah. It's like even if we opened the windows, there was kind of like all this exhaust coming into the car. But now we have fresh air.
We would be hiking counterclockwise on the 20-mile loop, staying a night at 92, making our way to Gregory Bald, and camping another night at Campsite 13 before hiking back out.
A rushing stream was flowing along the trail. Sunlight filtered in through the leafy canopy above, shining into our lush surroundings.
One thing, especially with the Smokies, is that I think it's technically considered a rainforest. So whenever I'm here, like in the summer, I associate it with like really lush vegetation. But some of the stuff we're seeing growing along the edge of this hillside, we've seen some maidenhair ferns, which are just really beautiful ferns. We saw some groundnut, which is a plant in the pea family that has little nuts you can eat underground. Some heartleaf foam flower, some Solomon seal, and false Solomon seal. But yeah, there's like so much biodiversity here.
It's funny because I've always thought of the Smokies as very rainforest-ish.
Yeah.
But I just figured that it couldn't be a rainforest because it wasn't somewhere more exotic, you know?
Yeah.
It's easy to lose sight of just how much biodiversity and how many fascinating plants there are in an environment like this.
So this inconspicuous looking tree or leaf is actually one of my favorite trees. This is called sorrel tree. It just looks like a normal leaf at first glance, but if you flip it over, there's these tiny little like hairs or spines along the ridge of the leaf. If you eat these leaves, they have a nice sweet sour kind of taste, just like a wood sorrel. I've also heard it called like sour tree. But yeah, it's really delicious to just pick leaves off and eat them.
It just wouldn't be a Smokies trail without the classic hike in with the rocky river on the side. I think literally every trail starts with this here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was this rich supply of water that allowed so many different plants to grow, including flowers like wood betony and wild geraniums.
Eventually, the trail led us to a bridge crossing over the beautiful stream. From here, we arrived at a junction which marked the start of the main loop.
Okay, so we're going up the long Hungry Ridge Trail. Should be at the end, I think, is where our campsite is at. On our final day, we'll be coming back out here. So this is like the terminus.
Okay.
But today we're going up here.
We kept hiking, and not far into the trail was an offshoot leading to a little overlook of the creek.
It's always soothing to stand in the presence of a rushing cascade or a roaring waterfall, to cool off in the mist of the water on a hot, summery day.
After enjoying the sight of the creek, we returned to the main trail and continued on.
As we hiked, we saw a snail sitting on a leaf and some whorled loosestrife flowers.
It felt great to be stretching our legs out on this trail after so much driving, but we would definitely have to get used to the summer heat and humidity.
I feel like it's been a while since we've hiked in weather this sweaty.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Man, you immediately just feel sluggish. You don't want to hike for very long.
We gradually hiked higher in elevation and started seeing some characteristic Appalachian scenery around us.
So there's a couple plants that contribute to the really jungle feeling of this environment. One is mountain dog hobble, which we've been seeing growing along this area. It kind of has this like waxy look, and we actually saw some that are fruiting. The others, of course, are the rhododendrons, which grow all throughout the Smokies. Here's some right here. And they have these distinctive waxy leaves. And they're not flowering right now, but people will grow varieties of plants in this family, you know, because of their beautiful flowers. And actually right here, there's some blackberries, and they aren't ripe yet, but you can see the unripe ones right here, just growing wild.
A month or two out from our hike, these berries would ripen and turn black, perfect for picking and eating straight from the source.
Another plant we're seeing growing everywhere is wild hydrangea. And hydrangeas are another plant where people will cultivate it and actually grow it in their yards. Again, because they bloom really beautiful flowers. But right now they've got little clumps of white flowers that are just about to bloom. So on the ground I'm seeing these little flower petals. And these belong to the tulip poplar, one of my favorites. Which means there's some trees growing all around here, dropping these petals. So if we find some good tulip poplar bark, we'll start a fire one of these nights that we're out here.
The ground was scattered with more tulip poplar petals. From a distance, much of this forest looked like a whole bunch of green, but up close, the richness and variety of the forest became clear.
Every nook and cranny of the forest was teeming with life. Rocks were covered in vines and moss, and vegetation burst forth from every hillside.
It's easy to overlook some of the wonders of the woods when you don't stop to take a closer look.
So in between the cracks of this bark, there's this orange little cup fungus. And if you look really closely, on the margins of it, there's these hairy little eyelash-looking bits. And this is actually called an eyelash fungus. But yeah, it's growing on this dead log. A lot of fungi, tend to grow on rotting wood. But it's just really cool to see it just like in between the cracks of the bark.
And along the way, we also saw flowering plants like poke milkweed, spiderwort, and an old trillium.
We saw water trickling all around us as we hiked, which seemed to make us even more aware of the heat and humidity around us.
The hardest thing right now is just adjusting to the temperature and the humidity. It's been so long since we've done a hike in this kind of weather.
When you're standing still, the humidity really gets to you. But when you move, it's actually kind of nice because you get that air rushing against you.
The Smokies is known for some really tough uphills, but this is actually not too bad despite the fact we've been going uphill the entire time. It's not brutal in the way that the Smokies can be.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stays like this.
But while we struggle in the humidity, other forms of life thrive in it.
Whoa!
We got ourselves some chicken of the woods.
Some of it's a little buggy, but I think if we trim the edges off, it should be pretty good to eat. We can add that to our dinner tonight. It'll taste better than lion's mane, I promise.
You can actually see some young budding chicken of the woods up there. Too small to eat, obviously, but actually, when they come out, they're like little balls. So you can like pick them when they're that early. They're very tender. You can almost make chicken nuggets out of them. Well, they taste sort of like chicken nuggets.
It's definitely really tender feeling. Sometimes chicken of the woods, when it gets older, it's kind of hard, but this is definitely pretty soft. We're not gonna take too much. We'll just have a little bit to each try a little bit with our dinner tonight.
After harvesting a modest amount of the mushroom, we continued on. We came to another bridge passing over the creek. We also saw a section of the hills where rocks had collapsed onto the trail.
Looks like it all just fell out of this cavity here.
Yeah. I wonder if this tree fell over, kind of gave it the nudge it needed.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. That's crazy.
We kept hiking, crossing the creek yet again. On the bridge were dozens of butterflies fluttering around.
I feel like I always see a lot of butterflies in the Smokies, and it feels fake almost.
Yeah, there's smoke up there. I'm assuming it's the next campsite. We were pretty close. So this campsite is called 20 Mile Creek. We're staying at the next one, which is another couple miles away still. But we could take a break here.
Although we weren't stopping yet, the campsite was a nice, welcome break in our hike.
Whew. This has been pretty nice so far. Yeah. This tank top is a game changer because I feel great. And I feel like I'm usually the hottest of all of us.
I mean, you are completely soaked.
That's true. That's
the bone.
The wetness is cooling me off.
Three Musketeers?
This is a protein bar.
No.
It's really funny though. It's like, I feel like every winter feels so long that when everything turns green again, it's still hard to believe.
Yeah, it feels like it's never gonna happen again. Like, well, this is it for humanity.
Yeah, I'm glad the trail has been pretty decent hiking too. Yeah, not too strenuous yet.
We'll be pretty much going uphill for the first half of the entire trip, and then the second half will be entirely downhill.
But the nice thing is everything's just pretty much gradual. There's nothing really super sharp along the way.
Yeah.
After we leave the campsite tomorrow, once we reach like one of the main junctions, that's where we'll overlap with where I had hiked back in the day. Because I've hiked part of this trail before, but I came in from the north, and so a lot of the loop we're doing I haven't done before. But it'll be interesting to see what I missed out on.
While we rested, sunlight sparkled through the fluttering leaves above.
On the ground below us, a yellow flat-backed millipede crawled along the ground and almost into Robby's backpack.
Oh no!
We now continued onto the main trail. We passed over yet another bridge and continued hiking along. For the Smokies, this had been a surprisingly easygoing path.
I was thinking just now, is this the straightest trail that we've ever been on? I don't know if we've made any actual turns yet.
All of the turns got used up on the drive-in. It's kind of nice to have the first day be a little easier, and then the middle day you're like really into it. So there's a little yellow birch log here, and growing on it is a birch polypore. It's got kind of this like styrofoamy, almost meringue texture. But that mushroom is in particular good for starting fires like tinder, but you can also peel off the outer layer and use it as like a bandage or even a strop for your knife, kind of like how you use leather to sharpen your knife.
The trail continued on a more or less straight path through the woods.
Although the trail itself was fairly uncomplicated, the scenery of the lush vegetation and rushing water around us were still beautiful to see.
Rhododendrons grew from mossy rocks, and we saw gallium and galax flowers blooming on the hillsides.
We haven't turned since we were at that campsite. It's been a literal straight shot all the way to this bridge here. I can barely hear myself think.
Yeah, that cold air feels good though. I want to just stick my head in there and guzzle down all the water.
It seemed we weren't the only ones enjoying the feeling of the cool water. Just above the creek was a spider perched on its web.
We hiked past more rhododendrons and saw some yellow flowers in the rose family. We also saw another snail and a log covered in orange-colored pinewood gingertail mushrooms.
I think it's just that the sun is behind the clouds, but suddenly got really dark and much quieter because we're not near the water anymore. This is actually very nice.
It's cooling down, I guess, because the sun's behind the clouds and quietness. It almost feels like a completely different atmosphere now.
We continued down the trail as the late afternoon set in. Along the way, Andrew spotted signs of a familiar plant on the ground.
I feel like we're in kind of like a spooky time of day. All the sun is gone. But anyway, I saw a plant that fits that mood, which is the ghost pipe. It's a parasitic plant. It looks like this drooping flower that's kind of white, almost translucent looking. But the reason it looks like that is because it's parasitic. So it has no color, so it doesn't need to photosynthesize because it steals nutrients from other plants nearby.
Oh, interesting.
Weirdly enough, that plant is somewhat related to blueberries, which we'll see some blueberry bushes later on this trail, although we're probably too early for the actual berries themselves.
Yo, have we ever been on a trail like this before? It's almost like a road.
I feel like there have been trails like this in the Smokies before, but it usually doesn't go on this long.
Yeah, it's been over 3 miles now.
Yeah.
I mean, if it stays like this, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no complaints, I guess. So along with all the rhododendrons, another common shrub or tree even that grows here is the mountain laurel. There's one right above here. It looks like they're just finished flowering, but some of the flowers are coming off. And if you look closely, you can just see how beautiful and intricate the pattern of the flower is. Even on the underside, it kind of reminds me of finding these like incredible seashells on the beach.
There were also clumps of huge flowering wood sorrels nearby, along with more galax flowers, also known as wand flower.
Up ahead, the trail opened up a bit.
Got a big old trail junction up here.
Yeah, might be nice to take one more break before we get to the campsite. What do you guys think?
Definitely.
Yeah. This is a nice clear area.
Yeah.
Good sitting along too.
Yeah.
That's the long, hungry ridge trail. I don't like the sound of that.
That's us tomorrow too, actually.
Well, hopefully we at least have enough snacks to not be hungry. Nice ergonomic log. Oh, it's a little wet though.
I'll sit on this dry part and you guys can use your sitting mats.
While we rested, we chatted with some other hikers.
You guys camp out here?
Yeah, we went 20 miles, went all the way to Gregory.
Oh,
wow, that's
okay.
a long day.
Yeah. How many miles is that?
We have hit 13 miles now.
Wow. Definitely something we don't do.
We just crossed about like 5 creek runs.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
too?
Reminds me of these like crappy almond Nature Valley bars my mom used to get all the time. Well, I didn't like the whole almonds. Almond slivers are good.
What do you got against whole almonds, man?
It's just like,
Why you gotta-
it's like biting wood.
You gotta besmirch whole almonds all the time.
I love almonds
and
and
you're not
every
man
other.
enough to bite through an almond. Exercise that jaw.
We enjoyed our brief rest, but soon continued hiking. Once again, Andrew saw more fallen flowers on the path.
Check this out. This is the little cross section of one of the tulip poplar flowers. Something I like is that it actually looks like fire. So it's a good reminder that this is good for making fire if the 99 other times I've said that haven't stuck.
Ahead on the trail was a particularly overgrown section, so as a precaution, we tucked our pants into our socks to prevent any ticks from getting us.
And as with anything in the forest, this thicker patch of the woods was not a random occurrence.
It's really interesting to see the signs of the forest because like there's all these dead trees in this open spot of sunlight, and we just hiked through a thick part of the woods, and actually you can see there's a bunch of these blackberries growing which don't normally grow in the forest. Because these trees fell down and died and the sunlight started coming in, that this part of the woods just started overgrowing with all these like brambles and shrubs and things.
Ahead on the trail, we heard the sound of water rushing, and soon found our way to one of the stream crossings the other hikers had mentioned.
I think we might just have to suck it up and get wet. Let's go take a look. Over there you can kind of cross, but up here, I don't see really a good spot, so we might want to just suck it up.
Yeah,
Two strategies here.
yeah, it's just like whatever. Kind of refreshing.
Sometimes when you're hiking, you just have to give into and even embrace the discomforts that might come with the outdoors. Once you let go of the need to feel immaculately clean all the time, it can be a freeing feeling.
The trail now continued uphill again, before leveling back out. Up here, the sun seemed to be shining more, and we soon caught glimpses of distant hills through the trees. But in other areas, the thick shrubs blocked the view.
So do you know why rhododendrons are so ubiquitous here? In my head, all I have to imagine is just thickets of rhododendron, and that's the Smokies. Like when you guys think of the Smokies, it's rhododendron.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. It's such a iconic part of the landscape here.
When I think of the Smokies, it's literally been this entire trail. Is
Yeah.
what I think of. Hiking next to a river, rhododendrons on one side.
If I'm noticing what plants are nearby, then you know that it appears a lot.
Most of the rhododendrons here are either white-flowered rosebays or the pink-flowered catawbas at higher elevations. They're well suited to the environment here, and especially love streams and ravines.
So a lot of times you'll see these tiny little mushrooms really delicately growing out of just fallen branches and things like that. These I think are in the genus Marasmus, but these are pretty common to see mushrooms like this. They have this like nice little umbrella shape. One of the ways to identify mushrooms in this genus is they have like fairly prominent ridges on the tops of the caps, but it's just really cool to see them growing out of this little twig.
We kept hiking. As beautiful as the flora around us had been, the thickets of rhododendrons started feeling a bit claustrophobic.
We've been going through kind of like a thicker part of the woods, and I'm really hoping our campsite is nice and clear and open. It's nice and flat at least right now, but
The campsite is called Upper Flats, so that name just gives me the impression of a big, flat, open area.
The golden sunlight contrasted with the blue hues of the shady hills as we hiked on through the verdant vegetation all around us.
so sometimes in these woods you'll see these unassuming leaves that kind of look like this, and sometimes they won't even have a stalk or anything coming out of it, but they typically belong to some sort of an orchid. Now in this case, the flower's all shriveled up already, but I believe this is a lady slipper flower. Unfortunately, during this time of year in this part of the world, the flowers are already shriveled up and they've already been fertilized. But if you go further north around this time of year, you'll probably see some of the flowers still. But yeah, it's got these really big, broad leaves with parallel veins. And if you're lucky, you'll see the flower, which is a nice, bulbous, colorful, usually pink-looking flower. So this is a tree that grows around this area with dinosaur print-looking leaves. This is called Sassafras. People used to make like root beer and tea out of this. I've heard that if you drink too much, it can cause liver problems, but it does have a really nice, like, sweet floral scent to it. Actually, if you want to try smelling the one that's already broken there.
Looks like a bug was already chewing on it. Maybe a very mild. It's probably more placebo than anything. I don't think I'm actually smelling it.
We came to another stream crossing along the trail. While Bryan and Andrew gave in to the water, I did my best to keep my feet dry. Now, we checked the map to see how close we were to the campsite.
I think that clearing up ahead might actually be it. All right, one more stream crossing and then that's campsite. I can see a tent over there already. Are we about to get wet?
Oh man, and it's right there too. All right.
At this crossing, there wasn't really any way to keep our feet dry, but at least we had reached our campsite.
Being so close to the campsite, I was still determined to keep my feet dry one last time.
Show off.
That's not a show off, that's just don't want to get wet.
It's got a nice privacy log here.
Oh, I like this. This is good.
Plenty of space for the big tent in the back.
Yeah.
All right.
And a great sitting log, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's the first thing I noticed.
This will do.
We'll see how we feel. Big sedan would give us a little bit of the ability to dry stuff.
Now, we unpacked our gear and started setting up our tent.
With the tent set up, we collected water from the nearby stream to cook dinner. It's always a good idea to face your container downstream to prevent any particles or sediment from getting in.
We fired up the stove and started boiling the water. Eventually, the water was done boiling, and while we prepped our meals, Andrew started cooking the chicken of the woods.
Okay, so now I'm gonna cook this chicken of the woods that we foraged, and this time I'm just gonna sear it. Throw some little bits in here.
Perfect. All right.
Wow, I can actually smell it already. It's kind of fragrant, vaguely umami-ish smell.
After searing the chicken of the woods, it was time to give it a taste.
Considering we put zero seasoning, it does taste like a nice tender piece of chicken.
Yeah. Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Why are they not using this for substitute chicken already?
I think they haven't figured out how to like farm it yet.
So there was a point in time where my dad was foraging a lot of chicken of the woods, and I just ate chicken of the woods like week after week. And eventually I got sick of it, but man.
It is actually amazing how much this tastes like chicken. It really does have like that essence of that protein flavor.
Yeah. It is the epitome of tastes like chicken. The phrase tastes like chicken.
Well, that's good stuff.
What if I did that and just exploded everywhere? So today I'm having green curry. You're having fettuccine alfredo with chicken. Bryan is having lasagna. We're gonna give our ratings after we eat them.
That green curry we've had before.
This is at least an 8 out of 10 right now.
I think this Alfredo's a 8.5 right now.
I'm gonna say this is also an 8 out of 10.
Truly.
Which actually the green curry is. Wow, the lasagna is great. Maybe even an 8.5.
This is good. I love just how different that flavor is.
I might have to give this one a 9, but I feel like I'm in a mood for tomato sauce.
Yeah.
I'm usually not actually, but sauce.
Normally this fettuccine alfredo with chicken would rank much higher, but compared to those two with so much more flavor,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to bring this down to a 7.5.
I feel like this one doesn't have as much flavor as it usually does.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming back to this one, I'll take it up to an 8.5 just because the flavor is so It's so on point.
I'm gonna bump that up to 8.5 or a 9.
Yeah, I think the lasagna is the
was
best.
a clear winner.
Yeah. All pretty solid choices today, though.
Yeah.
You guys remember during Christmas and winter and stuff, we would all get together and our parents would just get these like frozen lasagnas and bake them in the oven.
Oh.
And we just have a bunch of slices of
I always
lasagna.
wondered where that lasagna was coming from.
Those family-sized lasagnas.
Those are some good memories.
Yeah. We'd also cook those frozen pizzas, especially my dad.
DiGiorno's.
After dinner, we had a special dessert planned.
All right. While they're putting the rainfly on, Robby and I prepared a little surprise because it's Bryan's birthday. All right.
Happy birthday, Bryan.
Thanks. I see this was a clever ploy. I turned around and I saw the fire and I was like, oh, is Andrew gonna start a fire? I just saw him like standing there with like holding this thing.
These were good brownies.
We've eaten so many keto and date brownies. Having an actual real brownie is really nice.
Have we celebrated everybody's birthday? I don't think we've ever done mine.
Mine's easy because it's during Memorial Weekend.
It'd be easy to do me and Thomas's if we were on a trip together.
Yeah.
It's really weird his birthday's one day before mine.
After dessert, we prepared our sleeping bags and hung up our food.
You're looking more and more the part of the Asian dad every day.
And finally, we once again all piled into our big tent.
Was the big tent the right decision?
Oh,
yes,
man.
it was.
The big tent is always the right decision.
Oh man. The key with this is just to use your summer bag as a blanket, so you're not fully enveloped by warmth.
Yeah. Even then, I'm still hot right now.
Yeah.
Pretty nice temperature, all things considered.
Tank top was the way to go. Feel nice and less warm.
Oh man, I just realized it's 8:46 and the sun hasn't even set yet.
Yeah.
Although, I might be asleep before the sun even sets. To be honest, I'm so tired.
Yeah. All right, time to lie here in silence.
The next day, the early morning sun cast a soft light across the forest, filtering through the beautiful green leaves all around us. As the sun rose higher, I went to grab the food bags from the bear hang so that we could start the day.
We got in the tent at 8 o'clock, and it's now 10 o'clock.
There was one point where we all got up to pee.
That was 4.
And I couldn't fall back asleep for a while after that.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Well, that's because that was a full night of sleep at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Actually, it's not that bad, putting on the wet socks.
I'm going to let mine pretend to dry in the sun a little longer.
After packing up some of our gear, we brewed up a couple cups of coffee for the morning. It was a slow, calm morning, and we took our time waking up, much like the other critters living in the forest.
As the day carried on, we filled up on water, then took down our tent.
Before long, it was time to head out.
Before we leave, I want to look at some of the plants around camp. This obviously is the tulip poplar, my favorite one. Over here is a holly plant, which is an evergreen tree, obviously associated with like the winter holidays. And this one is called black locust. It's a tree that's in the pea family. It grows these clumps of like white flowers that really smell fragrant. Further north, they're already in bloom right now, but you can actually eat the flowers and they taste kind of like sweet peas.
Now, we headed out of the camp to continue along the long Hungry Ridge Trail. But before we even got on the trail, Andrew saw another interesting plant.
So this is another shrub growing around our campsite, and I've actually never seen it flowering like this in the Smokies till now, but this is something called Carolina sweet shrub. It's really cool because when you don't see the flowers, it's just totally inconspicuous, but these are such a unique looking maroon colored flower.
Well, it's a good thing we didn't put too much effort into drying our feet because we immediately have a river crossing, a stream crossing, I guess I should say.
Wow, there's like no good way across this.
I was just about to say, I was like, that doesn't look... Well, maybe this log over here.
That would be too slippery, at least.
Yeah.
I feel like that's too dangerous.
Yeah, probably not worth it.
I knew there were going to be stream crossings, but I held out hope that it might not be that bad. Whew. I'm trying to walk on where there's like gravel, because the rocks are going to be more slippery.
Yesterday, some of the hikers had warned us that the stream after the campsite was pretty deep. And sure enough, it was a tricky crossing.
This must be the one that they were talking about.
Yeah.
After crossing the stream, we kept hiking along the trail, which started heading up a moderate incline.
We're already really into the uphill, and the name of this trail is not giving me much hope that it's going to abate anytime soon. In fact, I can see it's just completely straight, just like yesterday, and uphill the entire way. Fortunately, we got over 12 hours of sleep, so we definitely have the energy to do this today.
While hiking uphill, we were happy to take an occasional break to rest and look at some of the plants growing around us.
So there's a couple interesting plants here. This is a magnolia, specifically a Fraser magnolia. There's all sorts of different magnolia trees that grow throughout the US, but this one's unique because it has these leaves that are, one, they're not super waxy or shiny, but also if you look at the ends of them, they have these kind of lobes. And then over here, all of these bushes are actually blueberry bushes. If you look closely, you can see some of the unripe blueberries popping out. Unfortunately, we're still like 2 or 3 months before they actually ripen, but it's really cool to see these growing everywhere. We'll also see some of the blueberry bushes once we reach the bulbs too. And I've got a story with that one too.
But before then, we still had more deep, rushing streams to cross through.
After crossing the stream, we kept hiking, and I saw an interesting mushroom growing out of the leaf litter.
So there's a really cool mushroom here. I think it's Bolete bicolor. It's definitely a bolete mushroom, and I'm gonna show something really cool about this mushroom. Now, I should mention mushrooms are just the fruiting body of a fungus, so when you pick a mushroom, the whole organism is still underground, so it's just like picking a berry from a plant. And also mushrooms like this often will disintegrate after like a day or two anyway, so in order to show some of the unique characteristics, now if you look at this, it's turning from yellow to blue really rapidly. Just within a matter of seconds, it turns this navy blue. Now if I cut it in half, it looks even cooler, so look at that. Just immediately, like look at the contrast between those colors. I do know with psychedelic mushrooms, the psilocybin, which is the psychedelic compound, will also stain blue when exposed to air. The rate at which it stains is actually a way to identify whether or not it's edible. But this one is most likely not an edible mushroom because of how quickly it turned color. But it's just so cool, like seeing the contrast of color from red to yellow into that like brilliant blue.
Even when you don't have constant mountain vistas to look at, nature is extremely beautiful, as long as you remember to look closer and observe it and appreciate it in detail.
The trail now continued uphill at a definitively steeper incline than yesterday's hike.
Uphill is definitely getting more brutal today. It's just hot and muggy too.
How's it going, Bryan?
Very humid. Gotta pace ourselves. Yeah, we should probably take a break, fill up here.
Yeah, there's only 2 stream crossings from that campsite to our next campsite. We're gonna fill up on water now in case there's no water up ahead, because we're just gonna keep going higher. And the map doesn't look like there's much water, so.
While we filled up our water, we looked at all the life teeming around us. These sections of hardwood forests are the park's most biodiverse. And while it's good to see the forest for the trees, sometimes honing in on the smaller details can really help you appreciate a landscape that might otherwise seem mundane.
We now came to another stream crossing.
This one crossable?
It's not very deep, so it is probably doable. This seems solid enough. Of course, my feet are wet, so I don't care.
I just spent a good amount of effort drying my shoes and socks, so I'm highly motivated to get across without getting wet again. Bryan.
That's one thing about the wet feet is that it's freeing when you cross those streams.
Yeah. It's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's the last one for today. So.
Hopefully, yeah.
Wow, as we've gotten further away from the creek, it's so much quieter. It's very peaceful.
Yeah, I'm hoping as we get higher and closer to the bald, we might get a little less humid and a little bit of more of a breeze.
Yeah.
It might be wishful thinking though. It's really cool. I'm seeing so many more of these sorrel trees growing. And yesterday we just saw some young saplings, but this is a entire tree. And the bark has this kind of like chunky look where there's like squarish chunks of the bark. But if you look up, there's just all these nondescript looking leaves, but those are all edible. Makes me want to turn into a brontosaurus and eat them. Along with this sorrel tree, there's also this striped maple tree. And it's got these really distinct kind of like, they're very serrated and the lobes are less distinct. If you see a more grown striped maple tree, the bark will often have this like striped green pattern on it.
We continued hiking, and Andrew spotted a brilliantly colored flower.
And this is something called flame azalea. And azaleas are in the same family of plants as rhododendrons, which we're seeing everywhere, and the mountain laurels. These are just such a beautiful, flashy looking flower. You can really see why people grow azaleas ornamentally in their yard.
And Robby saw another strange plant.
Yo, I think this is the first time I've actually seen the corn on bear corn.
Oh yeah. I did hear that these are edible, but I think it's more medicinal than edible, really.
Also growing nearby were more mushrooms, and these Bowman's root flowers.
What's up with this? You got a pine tree or something?
Yeah, there's a eastern white pine. We saw a couple on the way in, but yeah, there's a bunch more. And I think that's because as we're increasing in altitude, we're starting to see these like subtle shifts in the environment. I mean, even the air I feel like feels less humid now.
Oh man, it's a very nice breeze.
Super nice, yeah. And I know there's sections of the Smokies where you get pretty high up and it looks like a completely different world. So
We decided to take a break from all the uphill hiking and have a snack.
What are you eating?
some Nature Valley protein granola.
What are you eating?
Got my beef stick.
As we rested, a cool breeze rolled through the hills, rejuvenating us. After a moment, we continued the uphill climb.
Along the trail, I saw more plants that caught my attention.
So this plant has like a nice whorled pattern, which means that the leaves grow all around it, kind of radiating out. It's called cucumber root because if you dig up the root, there's a little bulb, and when you eat it, it's kind of got this like crunchy cucumbery flavor. And next to them are some more of these Solomon seal plants, which also have an edible root that you can dig up and eat. So that bird call, well, that one just now was a pileated woodpecker, but the whistling that we hear that goes, that's a peewee. And it's actually called a peewee because its bird call kind of sounds like it's saying peewee. Peewee.
Sounds Chinese.
Yeah.
Peegoo.
The trail gradually continued higher uphill. Along the way, we saw a jack-in-the-pulpit flower, some fruiting striped wintergreens, and a white satin moth.
The incline today was starting to wear us down a bit, and there seemed to be no end in sight.
Starting to feel the fatigue. Typically when you do an uphill, there's at least spots where you have momentary respite. Even though the uphill's not a lot, it's just, there's never a flat spot.
I think what I'm most surprised about is how nice the weather is. I thought it was gonna be much more humid than it is, but it's actually gotten a little bit cooler as the day's gone on.
Yeah.
Along with the cooler weather, the good news was that we were also close to the next junction on the trail.
As we approached the junction, we saw a downy woodpecker hopping around on a tree.
Okay, this is the last turn, and then up this hill is something called Rye Patch. Don't know what that is, but the satellite makes it just look like more forest, so don't get your hopes up too much.
You already shot my hopes down.
The trail still continued upward, but the scenery was changing ever so slightly. Here and there, we caught a glimpse of distant hills as we entered a sunnier but thicker patch of the woods.
We're surrounded by all these fire azaleas and blackberry flowers. And it's another example where there's been an opening in the sky and all these plants are getting the sunlight, so you're seeing plants that normally wouldn't grow in a shady forest. Unfortunately, they're thorny plants.
Yeah, prepare for disappointment on this Rye Patch.
We continued through the woods and eventually arrived at the Rye Patch.
Well, there's nothing to write home about, but it's not as disappointing as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice flat open area. Good place to rest.
Whew.
While resting, we shared a snack of some delicious fried and dried yellow fish.
Now, we continued through the tall grass. After so much hiking, the forest landscape started feeling a little monotonous.
This has been like nice, easy trail more or less, but I'm really looking forward to getting to the bald and just having a change in scenery.
In the meantime, we focused on the oft-overlooked beauty around us, like this bee pollinating a wood betony flower. Every so often, wild geraniums or other flowers would add a pop of color to the sea of green vegetation.
We continued hiking and suddenly saw something scurrying off in the distance.
Boar.
So we just saw two wild boars running across the trail right over there. We heard a crashing in the woods and we just saw them run right across. I don't know where they are, but we're getting the bear spray out because they are still pretty dangerous animals.
Somewhere in this vicinity. They're gone now, for sure.
I feel like there's parts of the ground that look disturbed, but it's really hard to tell.
Wild boar are in fact invasive to this landscape and can cause extensive damage to the natural ecosystem here.
After seeing that boar, it kind of just reminds you that there are still other things out here that can hurt you, and the mindset I feel like has changed a little bit, and we're a bit more wary and a bit more cautious now.
Especially when the forest is this thick, you can't really see what's ahead of you. And then you look ahead and you're like, is that a... No, that's nothing.
I see patches of dirt that have been turned up, and I wonder if that's from a boar.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like that's super likely, right? There's gotta be something digging in there.
And aren't boars known for digging around?
Yep.
Well, we're almost there. So if you go this way for 2 miles, you'll hit the Appalachian Trail.
According to our GPS, before we hit Gregory Bald, there was something else called Gregory's Little Bald.
And I feel like we are just about to hit the first little Gregory Bald, even though the main one's still 0.7 miles away.
This trail right here is basically going to be the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. So basically, if we look that way, is it Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tennessee, North Carolina. Take a break, or I feel like we're pretty close to the Gregory Bald.
Yeah.
At least if the Gregory Bald's 0.7, then that means we're just a mile away from our campsite. So.
We continued on and saw more signs of wildlife in the area.
I mean, none of us are experts, but this looks like it could very possibly be where some boars have been rooting around. Another sign up ahead.
So we were told there wasn't really a Gregory's Little Bald, at least on the way along the trail.
I mean, if anything, we should be able to see it like just to the left of the trail when we're going past it according to this, because it should be right there. It's pretty much almost done for the day. So.
Yeah. On the map, Little Gregory's Bald is in this direction at the highest point, but it doesn't really look like there's any way to get there.
It does look like it might have a clearing because there's a lot of sunlight there, but...
Yeah, it doesn't seem like super distinct though. So far it looks like Gregory put Rogaine on his Little Bald.
The trail climbed further upward, and we passed by a log with orange mycena mushrooms growing out of it.
As we hiked, I asked Andrew about his past trip in this area.
Unless I'm mistaken, you've been on this section of the trail before, right?
I don't remember much of it, but I do remember the campsite and the Bald very distinctly. But both the Bald and the campsite are going to be well worth this hike.
We were all eager to get to the Bald. Along our uphill hike, we saw more signs of the wild boar that had been roaming these hills.
Since we just saw that wild boar, I guess it's no surprise that there's a boar trap out there. This one looks like it's closed, but I don't think there's anything in there.
We probably hear it.
Yeah, we probably hear it.
But I was saying, like, all along this trail, we're seeing like the ground is all dug up and
very disturbed ground, yeah.
Yeah, you can tell the soil's been kind of like tilled and stuff by a boar probably, so.
Actually, in rural areas, there's a huge problem with wild boars. And part of the reason is that they also reproduce like crazy. And they get to maturity really fast, so.
I want to investigate this thing really quick. It might not be anything. Whoa, it's some like old chicken of the woods, I think, that's just been gelatinized by bugs eating it. But you can just make out the orange color of it. Wow.
Before long, we could see clear skies in the distance as we approached Gregory's Bald.
That is a beautiful sight.
Oh, baby.
Oh, man.
This has to be what it feels like walking to heaven.
The warm sunshine.
Oh man, this is amazing. Oh my God.
This is what I've been waiting for.
The other thing about this Bald is that if you visit in the summertime, you are greeted with like a whole bounty of fruits, because one, there's blueberries, but two, all of this is just wild blackberry, and it's all flowering right now. So not only do you get to this open space, but you get to forage all these delicious berries.
Atop of the Bald, we were treated to sweeping views of the distant blue mountains and hills.
Open meadows and sunshine were a much welcomed change of scenery. But even up here, there were still smaller details worth observing.
So growing on this bush, it kind of looks and feels like a weird fruit, but this is actually a gall.
These fungal galls are colloquially called pinkster apples, and there are reports of settlers in colonial times eating them, though rhododendron plants themselves can be toxic.
grape.
Yeah. It does look kind of appetizing in a weird way, though.
What's it smell like?
Just vaguely planty, like it doesn't have any sweet smell really. So then over here, this is something I always remember seeing as a kid in the summer. These are the nests of something called a spittlebug. You can really see why it's called that. It just looks like kind of gross, especially in this COVID era. But if you were to like dig through that little clump of spit, you would find a bug sleeping or resting in there.
We soon approached the top of the bald, enjoying the breathtaking scenery along the way.
Oh my goodness. This is what I had pictured.
Yeah. This keeps getting better and better. Actual bald. Where should we set up?
Maybe these rocks? These rocks look pretty good. Looks like it's 4,900, 49 feet.
We did it.
We took our sweet time milling about at the top of the bald, enjoying the cool, dry air and the beautiful mountain vistas.
I'm gonna give myself a nice long drying out here.
This is like paradise up here, man.
This is pretty much exactly what I'd hoped it would be.
I've got these sachimas. It's kind of like a Asian Rice Krispie treat, but it's a Manchurian dessert originally, like northern China, basically.
These were our Rice Krispie treats growing up. I like them because
I like them a lot.
they're oilier, so they have like a moister taste than like a Rice Krispie treat.
I remember seeing these all the time. I don't remember eating them that often.
Really?
I like the texture, it just like collapses in your mouth.
Not bad, not bad. This is the most mild sweetness I've ever experienced.
It looks like if someone made a Rice Krispie treat out of corn pops.
They also have ones with raisins that I like, but I figured Bryan might not like the raisins.
You're anti-raisinite?
Why would you take a perfectly good grape and then dry it out?
We were undoubtedly entranced by Gregory's bald. Rolling, grassy hills, fluffy clouds, and distant mountain ridges are the sort of picturesque scenery everyone hopes to see on their first time out backpacking.
But an experience in the wilderness isn't just about the sights you see. Though we enjoyed being up here, it didn't invalidate the fun we had had hiking through the thick forest the past day and a half.
What we really take away from backpacking is the feeling we get from it. The feeling of unrestrained freedom to wander, to explore, to experience life free of the shackles of societal expectations and norms.
To truly appreciate the wilderness is to enjoy both the scenic views as well as the finer details, like fields of auburn-colored sheep sorrel seeds and thickets of blueberry bushes all around. Now, we made our way back to the campsite. We passed by some blueberry bushes, blackberry flowers, and found our way back into the woods.
As we hiked, Andrew reminisced about his last time hiking here.
So one really distinct memory I have from the time I was here was I got to the campsite, and after setting up, I wanted to go back to the bald to have some nice open skies. I remember walking up this path and seeing all the gnarly trees, and it was like super misty and foggy. Felt like something out of a fantasy novel. And then getting to the top, it was just so nice to like have everything opened up.
Wait, is that the same trip where you saw a bear?
Yeah, that was on the trail up to that junction. that we passed by earlier.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was just a short bout of hiking downhill before we arrived at the campsite.
Well, looky.
Now, I do remember this campsite being pretty nice.
See something nice over there.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, that looks like a nice one right there.
It's got a lot of firewood here.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, I'm okay with this one.
Tent spot is great right here.
Yeah. This one looks nice too, honestly. The other one had more firewood though.
The other one had more space, I feel like, for the tent. Yeah, and the firewood. Yeah.
What do we think?
Other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The tent space is better at the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if you go that way for a little bit, there's a stream crossing that you can.
There's a bear
fill
hanging
up at.
here too, so let's make note of that.
Oh, that's good to know.
Cool. Let's get that chonker tent set up.
After getting our tent set up, we had another birthday meal planned for tonight. Birthday noodles.
And these weren't your typical instant noodles. These were some wide noodles with a Sichuan-style spicy sauce.
Double stir.
Oh man. So this is part 2 of the birthday meal, the traditional birthday noodles.
Noodles are for long life. You get long noodles, long life.
And these are also nice wide noodles, so maybe we can make up something about how it means you'll have an interesting life too. And I also added the black wood ear fungus into it. But wood ear fungus is always like such a great thing to add to soups and stuff because they feel really substantive, but they're really easy to boil up and cook. Bink! And there's some eel here if you guys want.
Oh, I definitely want. Oh yeah. I do love a good eel. Man, that is the classic spicy ramen smell.
Yeah. It's like Sichuan style wide noodles. It's actually not meant to be eaten as a soup noodle, but works perfectly fine as one. You know, I also usually avoid spicy foods when I'm camping, but this is hitting the spot.
It's always okay to have spicy foods on your last day. Well, okay is kind of a weird word, but you can get away with it.
Oh, it's good. Like a broad noodle. Is that from Seinfeld?
It's a chow fun. It's a broad noodle. Well, I don't want a broad noodle.
It turns out we weren't the only ones having dinner. In the distance, we saw a buck with a new set of antlers chowing down on some grass.
As the deer browsed around, the sun sank lower, and the evening glow cast everything in a golden aura.
We went to hang up our food bags for the night, and Andrew collected some kindling for a small fire.
To start the fire, we had some special supplies sent to us by a friend.
So Ron Mueller gave us this beautiful tin of tinder. You've got some cotton, which seems to be soaked in some sort of flammable oil. We've got some pieces of fat wood. And then this looks like shavings of fat wood or something. Hopefully we won't have too much problem starting a fire. The kindling itself is a little bit damp because everything here is damp right now, but all this stuff should go up in an instant. Yeah, these are like cotton balls soaked in Vaseline, I believe. I'm gonna use a couple of these just because the fat wood holds a flame for a long time. So that way we'll have a flame for a while to actually catch the kindling. Oh, that was instantaneous. I'm gonna put one piece of fat wood on here. I think that's all I'll need. This should hopefully catch pretty easily. Yeah, there we go. All of this is pretty damp, so I might add one more fat wood just to get things going. I'm being a little more ginger with my kindling just because if I put all of this on there and a lot of it is damp, then that could just smother the fire immediately. Whereas when you have a nice dry bundle, it's not as critical that you put one piece on at a time. And in fact, sometimes it's better to put a whole bundle on in that case. But
After some gentle coaxing, the fire was stable, and we sat around and enjoyed its light.
Feels like a complete trip now that we've got this going. When you've got everything that you need and you're not super cold, a fire never seems super worth it until you've actually got one going.
That's true, yeah.
But as soon as it's going, then you feel like, I don't know, you just feel like you're home. So this was the campsite I stayed at the second of the 3 nights that I did on my solo trip. When I went there, I met these 2 people, Nathan and Sandra. It's crazy because I was just boiling my water. I just had no good way to like collect water. So it was a very desperate situation, but these 2 were totally welcoming and let me stay at their campsite with them and like gave me some of their rehydrated soup. And then when we hiked out together, they gave me this like little piece of quartz that they had gotten from one of the towns nearby. And then we all took a shot of whiskey together. It was great.
I feel like if we ran into someone who was just struggling, I feel like we'd do the same too. Yeah. Because like you see someone out here and you know like they're inexperienced, then it's like your duty to make sure they don't die out here. It's on you at that point.
That solo hike was so tough back then. I feel like it would still be kind of tough to do this whole loop on your own, like until you get to the bald and you have that like nice morale boost. If we didn't have each other, that would be so much more difficult to do.
Yeah.
I'd have to put on some tunes and just zone.
Yeah. I love a good bald.
The warm glow of the evening sun shimmered through the forest canopy as we headed to the tent to get ready for bed.
And after waiting a while for it to get completely dark, Andrew and I headed out to the bald to see some stars.
It was a lot of effort to get out of that tent. So I really hope this bra bomb is worth it.
it took so much mental discipline to actually get us out.
We hiked through the cool night air. Here and there, we saw critters like the salamander, and we wondered what other wildlife was out and about in the dark.
It's funny, we ran into those boars on the trail, and then we heard about 2 rattlesnakes in this area. I'm pretty sure those animals are sleeping, but it still feels like we could just get mauled alive by some sort of wildlife.
Rain cover or something? Towel?
I guess so. There's something weirdly meditative about just hiking at night like this. I think it's because like you can't see anything else and it's so quiet and all you hear is just like the rocks clinking together as you hike. I don't know, it's just kind of fun in a weird way.
If you didn't get really tired, you know, and you could just hike at night, you had a powerful enough light, it'd actually be really fun to hike at night. Super quiet. I can see 1 star already. Yeah. Wow. Love the sound of that wind. That is great.
Stuff like this really makes it feel like an adventure.
I was expecting the stars to be the main attraction, but those city lights are amazing.
It's crazy because earlier we just saw green hills. Like I would never have thought there was all that.
Yeah. Holy cow, man.
From the top of the breezy bald, we took in the feeling of the crisp night air and the wondrous sights of the distant lights and shining stars above. It was truly something incredible to behold.
Crazy that we are actually living in the future.
Yeah.
Like seeing a plane fly overhead like that and even those city lights, like that is something that is unfathomable to people just like 100, 200 years ago.
Yeah. The future will always happen. To the people who lived way back when, what's happening now is unfathomable, but is also inevitable. You know, I've talked many times before about how at the beginning of the trip, I had this thought that this is just going to be a memory in like 2 days.
I've had that thought often too, actually.
Our lives are going to be a memory at some point. Like, we don't know how we're going to go, but we are going to go at some point.
And I think that's what I love about moments like this is it's like you're forced to be in the present, because it's like between being exposed to the elements and the cold chill of the air and like the incredible sights of the stars and stuff, like there's no way you can be on autopilot when you're in an environment like this.
Yeah. And I can't believe, no matter how many times we see stuff like this, it feels like the first time every time.
Yeah. It is so easy when you're not experiencing stuff like this to go on autopilot and to not want to push yourself to experience something like this again. Even if you're not always perfect about doing it, like I've had my days where I just lie around and but it's like at least having done something like this, in the back of your mind there's something pushing you to keep finding the adventure in life.
Doing the hard thing almost always is worth it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always have to do the hard thing, but when you do the hard thing, you'll rarely be sorry that you did it.
Yeah.
We were in that tent really comfortable earlier, and we're like, I don't know. We looked up and we saw the stars, and I'm like,
yeah,
we should probably go. Then you got out here and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did it.
Even if you don't do stuff like this every single night, it's like once in a while, remind yourself that you should seek that out. So worth it.
The next day, we awoke to a calm and quiet, but rather humid morning.
My hands sweat so bad when I sleep.
I don't know if they sweat, but they're definitely sticky.
Either way, it feels terrible.
It feels so musty right now.
It's ruined.
After freshening up a bit, we prepared Vietnamese coffee with an old packet of sweet condensed milk.
The key is you gotta knead it. There's actually a hard spot in here. That's weird.
That's weird. So how'd you guys sleep?
I'm not sure. I know I slept, but I couldn't really tell if it was really fulfilling sleep.
I could not get my sleeping bag zipped up for so long, and I realized the sleeping bag was upside down. So I was trying to zip the wrong side. But as soon as I did that, I had to pee, and I kept putting that off for so long. After that, I was golden.
When you are camping, you always have to pee. It doesn't matter what you do. Like, you could go pee right before you go to bed. Your body's like, nope, you gotta take a massive pee in the morning. Is this appropriate for...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with the milk sugar, that tastes fantastic.
How'd you sleep?
Imagine sweating your butt off in a sleeping bag, but actually staying asleep. That's how I slept.
Yeah, everything feels musty right now.
I don't think musty is the right word. This is way too moist for musty.
Or is musty part of moist?
I thought musty is kind of moist.
I associate musty with, like,
smells, right?
That smell, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a smell from having been moist and moldy, I thought.
Yeah, you're right. Damp and musty, right?
Yeah.
I feel like damp is the word I'm thinking.
I just got confused and I thought it was supposed to be in my food bag.
After coffee, we enjoyed the peaceful morning a bit, before heading out to a nearby stream to refill our water.
After filling up our water, we headed out. While we hiked, Andrew saw a plant that reminded him of his last trip here.
So these plants here are called false nettles, and they really bring back a core memory of mine where I was camping solo in the Smokies, and I was still on that natural toilet paper thing. And I used these leaves to wipe, and they were perfectly fine. And then the next day, I found the same plant, and I used it again. Except it wasn't the same plant, because as the name implies, this is a false wood nettle, and there's also a real wood nettle. And it hurt so badly after I used it the second time.
Immediately?
It was pretty quick.
Using something called false nettle as a toilet paper, just playing Russian roulette at that point.
So, yesterday we came down from there. Now we're gonna go this way to Parson Bald, which is less than a mile away, so that should be kind of nice to see. And then it's all downhill from here, baby.
In a good way.
So, one plant that, I don't know if it would help with the ailment that I had, but it's really good for bug bites and poison ivy, is this, which is called spotted touch-me-not, also called jewel weed. But you can take the stems and they have a lot of juice in them, and if you rub that on any sort of like itchy part on your skin, it should help with it.
It was a perfectly tranquil last day. Though we had a good amount to hike, it was relatively easy, so I took my time and looked for even more plants to talk about.
So we're in another area with lots of ferns, and this New York fern has some weird brown-looking fronds in the middle here. And this isn't some sort of disease or anything. What this is actually the fertile fronds of the fern. And what that means is these are the things that will distribute the spores so that the plant can actually reproduce. If you look closely, you'll see all these tiny little kind of brown circles of spores all up and down that stalk.
While we hiked through the sunny patches of waving grass, Andrew saw an interesting fungus growing on a boulder.
This is a common sight on big rocks like this, these sorts of flat, flaky fungi. But this is called rock tripe, and it's kind of a similar fungus to like wood ear mushrooms. It is edible though, and actually they do sell this in the store too, at like Asian grocery stores and stuff.
Does it look better at some point, or is that the edible form?
That's pretty much what it looks like, and I want to try the store-bought version first because I am too afraid to like that does not look that appetizing. Because with wood ear fungus, it's at least like wet and gelatinous, so it feels like something you eat, but this is just like very dry and papery, so.
Soon, we neared the area marked Parson's Bald on the map.
I hope this bald is actually cool. I see a big open sky though.
I would imagine that if they actually mark it on a trail sign,
yeah,
it's gonna be an actual bald.
Oh yeah, it's a bald, all right. It's definitely a little bald.
A small bald?
It's a very, very small bald.
Is there more to it?
No, I think this is it.
Oh.
Yeah, this is nice.
It is nice though, yeah.
Nice little
break. Parson's had a little more Rogaine.
We took this moment to take in the fresh air around us and rest for a little while. As we rested, Andrew scrounged around to look at some wildflowers.
All in the grass there's these yellow flowers, and this actually belongs to the genus Potentilla, but it's actually like a false strawberry. So this yellow flower eventually will turn into sort of a red fruit that resembles a strawberry, but it kind of tastes like dust. And then you've obviously got all these blueberry bushes, but here you've got blackberry canes. And these white flowers that are growing, they'll eventually turn into blackberries. But as with many things in the rose family, you can actually eat the flowers even before they turn into fruit. Now, you might be wondering what it tastes like.
dry nothing.
Kind of like bitter paper. On its own, it's not much, but I do like taking flowers like that and sprinkling them onto like wild salads. It adds some stuff to the presentation, but yeah, it's my secret shame.
Also in this area were some curled up fern fronds.
We now headed onward. From the main bald, we entered an open, grassy section of woods.
Now, typically, I wouldn't mind long grass that much, but considering the ticks and yesterday, somebody we saw mentioned they saw 2 rattlesnakes, just makes you a little more careful about where you're stepping. And I'd rather see where I'm about to step rather than have to kind of feel around.
Though the grass brings up anxieties about ticks and snakes, it's hard to deny that it looks beautiful, especially beneath the fluttering sunlight of a forest canopy.
We kept hiking, making our way through more dense woods before coming to a relatively clear area on the trail, where we decided to take a break.
I'm good. Saving that hunger spice.
I think so, yeah.
Man, this is such a pleasant day. Like, the weather has been perfect this whole time. It really cooperated. This weather feels like summer break to me, you know what I mean?
Wow, the freedom of summer break. That's the same feeling as finishing like a work project.
Yeah.
You finish a work project and you're just like, I'm free.
Yeah.
For a few days at least.
Yeah, that's what this feels like right now.
Hiking out on the last stretch of our trip, we were filled with a sort of satisfied tiredness, happy with our time spent in the woods, but ready to make our way back home.
Eventually, we came to another spacious part of the trail and talked about looking forward to the post-hike meal.
The thing I want the most is a nice cold drink.
The thing I want the most is that air conditioner blasting on me.
Yeah.
Let's just continue.
As we made our way downhill, we passed by beautiful flame azaleas and mountain laurel flowers that swayed in the calm summer breeze.
The trails descended downhill somewhat rapidly now. Just off the trail was an old, rusty object.
This random metal barrel thing here. It almost looks like it's like an old fire pit that they didn't use or something.
Maybe.
Like, I wonder if part of it gets buried for the fire pit. Huh.
We passed by one of the many rivulets often cascading down the hillsides in the Smokies, and caught a glimpse of the distant hills through the trees.
Then we arrived at another landmark.
Woo! Okay, we've made it to the campsite, which means we've got maybe 2 or 3 miles left back to the car. This deserves a nice little break.
Campsite must be back that way. Our trail continues this way. But our current journey is right here.
I had made it to the next landmark before the others. And while they caught up, Andrew identified another plant.
So there's a couple of vining plants in this area. First, you've got these greenbriers, which kind of have these thorny vines and leaves with very parallel veins. And certain species of these, I've heard you can actually eat the tender tendrils. But there's also some grapevine. I think it's muscadine grapes. And grapevine is something that grows all throughout the forest. A lot of times you'll see it in this sort of younger, greener stage when it's in a meadow. But in the woods, sometimes you'll see big, woody, barky vines just dangling from the trees. And those are also grapevine. But yeah, at some point, these sorts of vines will eventually produce, little grapes. And I've had some wild grapes that are pretty sour and tart. But there's others that taste a lot sweeter and almost as if they've been interbred with store-bought grapes or something.
Eventually, the others showed up at the campsite.
Welcome. Have a sit.
Oh, yeah.
My thoughts exactly.
I went to that campsite. It is so far. I was just walking and walking. And eventually I was like, I gotta run. And I ran and it still took forever.
Oh, man.
After Andrew arrived, we went to the nearby stream to cool off for a bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. It's amazing how much that boosts your morale.
And then Robby had an extra treat to keep us going.
I got one last ace in the hole.
Brownie?
in our darkest hour.
After enjoying the snack, we took in the summery ambiance around us and talked about our past trips in the Smokies.
So technically this is the 4th time we've been to the Smokies. Each trip we've taken has been vastly different. I think it's just a lot to reflect on. So I feel like every time we've come to the Smokies, there's been some sort of lesson learned.
It's funny, the Smokies has a distinct look and feel to it, but all the places we've been have also felt really different. Partly because we've been there in different seasons, but also there's just so much to see in this park.
It's funny how far we've come from our very first Smokies trip, where we literally gave up on our planned hike, and me and Thomas just hotel archived it up.
This trip has been really interesting because even though the scenery, except for the bald, wasn't like anything to write home about, there's still something so nostalgic and nice about just hiking in the woods like this, especially in perfect weather like this.
Yeah, we really got lucky with the weather. Anything else to add, Robby?
Just really happy we're going downhill. Did all the hard work before. I usually can't save my dessert to the end. In this case, we saved our dessert hiking to the end.
This is one of those trips where you feel rejuvenated, but you're really ready to get back.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect way to end it.
The boundless freedom of summer break. That's the sort of feeling that exploring the wilderness can bring. A feeling of weightlessness, of relief, of unrestricted liberation.
Sometimes it's standing at the top of a mountain looking at a majestic view that gives us this feeling. Sometimes it's gazing at the stars on a brisk night, and sometimes it's just wandering through the woods with no agenda, no schedule, and no limits to where you can go or what you can do.
A lot of times, we seek out picturesque places in nature. It's easy to see the value of the wilderness when there are rolling hills and snow-capped mountains.
But the value of the wilderness is more than what it looks like. It's about the way it makes us feel.
Not everyone is as awe-inspired by an expanse of forests or barren desert or vast tundra.
But in all wilderness landscapes, we can find a sense of freedom.
When you've experienced what a life free of restrictive social norms, oppression, and exploitation can be like, even if just for a few days, you come away with an invaluable perspective that makes you cherish life and look forward to the possibilities of a better world. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy our videos, please consider joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/adventure.
Patrons get early access to the videos, special live streams, commentaries, and bloopers. And patrons at the hiker tier can even get their names in the credits. If you enjoyed the music we wrote for the episode, you can find all of it at adventurearchives.bandcamp.com. Finally, we have t-shirts for sale, which you can find at bit.ly/adventureshirts. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
How ready are you for this?
Ready doesn't even begin to describe it.
Oh man, I'm so ready, dude. I'm gonna. Well, I don't know what I'm gonna eat, but I'm gonna eat something. Can you feel your life returning to you?
Oh yeah. So good. Unbelievable.
We're just eating the chips right now.
Oh yeah. That's so good. It's noticeably different than from what you'd expect, like an orange soda taste.
I think it does taste like mandarin oranges.
Yeah. I love all orange sodas. I'm like, was it Keenan from Keenan and Kel? Which one was that? This is my body going like, oh, okay, we're finally getting food. Okay, time to be hungry.
Hot.
I think that's good stuff. That's good.
Ooh, plate's hot too. Really excellent. Holy cow.
Man, you know when a place serves a whole fried tilapia that you're in for a treat.
That is crazy, man.
Gotta get a box for this fish. I think if I had 15 more minutes, I'd be able to finish this all.
Everyone satisfied?
Oh, very sad. That was really good. Like, I always feel like Mexican restaurants I can't really miss, but I also am never really that impressed with them. But this place was excellent.
Yeah.
Ponchos? Good job, Poncho. James Rokitsky, thank you so much for looking after Salvador Gonzalez.
Dorcia, how impressive. How on earth did you manage to get a reservation there?
Lucky, I guess.
Your suit. That is a wonderful suit. Don't tell me, let me guess. William Garnett.
Mm-hmm.
It's so soft. Your compliment was sufficient, John Scott. Hello, Elaine R. Anthony. Nice tie. How the heck are you?
Gavin Ryan has mistaken me for Elaine R. Anthony. It seems logical because Anthony also works at A&A and in fact does the exact same thing I do. She also has a penchant for William Garnett suits and Mukun Kati glasses. Elaine and I even go to the same barber, although I have a slightly better haircut.
So how's the account going, James?
It's all right.
Really? That's interesting. It's not great?
Oh, well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ryan, congratulations on the Aquia Giasari account.
Thank you, Mary Sincavage.
Listen, Ryan, Squash Friday.
Call me.
New card. What do you think?
Oh, very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday. Good coloring. That's bone. And the lettering is something called Cillian Braille. Very cool, Rokitsky, but that's nothing. Look at this. Eggshell. Wood Romalian type. What do you think? Nice. Jesus, that is really super how to nitwit like you get so tasteful.
I can't believe that Mary prefers J. Raimundo's card to mine.
But wait, you ain't seen nothing yet. Raised lettering, pale nimbus, white. Impressive. Very nice. Let's see Gavin Ryan's card.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Couple birthday shoutouts. Happy birthday to Sam from Taylor Pearson. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Katia Strom from Bryan Strom, 7-Eleven on 7-Eleven. And they haven't requested a birthday shoutout, but happy birthday to Bryan and Aussie Yamagata.
Hey kids, come here. Madeline, Holly, come here. Look, they're trying to fight. They're trying to fight. This is great.
Are you depressed? Since the ducks left, I guess. What is it about those ducks that meant so much to you? There's just something that was... It was a trip having those ducks. Living in my pool, seeing them grow up and raise their babies. I was sad to see them go. When the ducks gave birth to those babies, they became a family. You're right. The ducks, they're like a moral family. The moral family, that's the link. I'm afraid of just losing my family. That feeling follows me everywhere I go.
Woke up this morning, got some gabagoo.
We've got another shout out from TS. Nikki, you made the Ireland trip amazing. It was an adventure that will last a lifetime and an adventure I want to take again. Thank you, Nikki, for being an amazing adventure partner, wife, and mom to our boy Liam. TS also wants to shout out the guys at Adventure Archives. Andrew, Bryan, that's me, Thomas, and Robby. Without your encouragement, I would not have gone on the adventure with Nikki. Keep on adventuring and showing us what is possible.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It is bullcrap. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Jasper Caparota. Oh, hey, Expedition Research LLC, what's up? I have a problem with Christina Alvarez. She says that I hit her. What? Well, did you? No, it's not true. Don't even ask.
Morgan and Oswin would like to give a shout out to Neil. Happy 5-year wedding anniversary and happy Father's Day. You're a wonderful dad and a great partner, and we're so very proud of you. Looking forward to many adventures and creative projects along our path together.
Hello? Yeah, I can do a few shoutouts. Have you seen the new Top Gun movie?
No, actually I haven't seen that.
You haven't?
Yeah, but we haven't got time yet.
Well, I got a few ideas. Charlie Joe wants to give a shout out to his kids, Cooper and Willow Joe. Keep on watching. Thank you. Max at Great Lakes Watercraft says, check out Great Lakes Watercraft. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to Sanwar1, Jason Bourgeois, and John Truitt. Keep on flying. Hi, David. This is a special message to you from your partner, Ginger. Ginger wants to say that she loves you and she loves spending time with you. And hopefully you guys can go for a hike sometime soon. But thank you so much, David and Ginger. Have a great one. Thanks for watching.
The next shout out has spoilers for episode 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Shout out to Douglas Jackson, Dan Volkins, Lennon Rocco, and Sunjan Huang. If you don't want to watch the shout out, skip to the time code on screen. Thanks for your support.
We're going to have to slow them down. Tell Inquisitor Dan Volkins I want to speak with him. He started this when he kidnapped Lynn and Rocco. I'll buy us as much time as we can.
If this is you stalling for time, it won't work. Lord Douglas Jackson will have you at any cost.
You mean Sunjan Huang? You knew who Douglas Jackson was. He would have kept that hidden. And you're too young to know who he really is. Unless you were there.
It doesn't matter where I was.
The night of Order 66. You were a youngling.
That's enough.
That's how you knew.
Enough! We thought he was there to help us. Sue and Tan, Leon and Lou Lin. They were the only family I knew.
You're not serving him, are you? You're hunting him. Let me help you.
Why?
Because we want the same thing.
Do we, Richard Frangiamore? Do we?
Jedi Knight Richard Frangiamore would also like to give a shout out to all the staff at Four Corners Pub in Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you for taking great care of them for 10 years. Never change, guys.